Han Feizi, Section 7. The Two Handles. The enlightened ruler controls his ministers by means of two handles alone. The two handles are punishment and favor. What do I mean by punishment and favor? To inflict mutilation and death on men is called punishment. To bestow honor and reward is called favor. Those who act as ministers fear the penalties and hope to profit by the rewards. Hence, if the ruler wields his punishment and favors, the ministers will fear his sternness and flock to receive his benefits. But the evil ministers of the age are different. They cajole the ruler into letting them inflict punishment themselves on men they hate and bestow rewards on men they like. Now, if the ruler of men does not insist upon reserving to himself the right to dispense profit in the form of rewards and show his sternness in punishments, but instead hands them out on the advice of his ministers, then the people of the state will all fear the ministers and hold the ruler in contempt, will flock to the ministers and desert the ruler. This is the danger that arises when the ruler loses control of punishments and favors. The tiger is able to overpower the dog because of his claws and teeth. But if he discards his claws and teeth and lets the dog use them, then on the contrary, he will be overpowered by the dog. In the same way, the ruler of men uses punishments and favors to control his ministers. But if he discards his punishments and favors and lets his minister employ them, then on the contrary, he will find himself in the control of his ministers. Tianchang petitioned the ruler for various titles and stipends, which he then dispensed to the other ministers, and used an extra large measure in doling out grain to the common people. In this way, the ruler Duke Qian lost the exclusive right to dispense favors, and it passed into Tianchang's hands instead. That was how Duke Qian came to be assassinated. Zhuge Han said to the ruler of Song, "Since the people all delight in rewards and gifts, you should bestow them yourself. But since they hate punishments and death sentences, I beg to be allowed to dispense these for you." Thereupon the ruler of Song gave up the exclusive right to hand out penalties, and it passed into the hands of Zhuge Han. That was how the ruler of Song came to be intimidated. Tianchang got to bestow favors as he pleased, and Duke Qian was assassinated. Zhuge Han got to hand out punishments as he pleased, and the ruler of Song was intimidated. Hence, if the ministers of the present age are permitted to share in the right to hand out punishments and favors, the rulers of the time will put themselves in great peril than Duke Qian and the Lord of Song. Invariably, when rulers are intimidated, assassinated, obstructed, or forced into the shade, it has always come about because they relinquished the rights to administer punishments and favor to their ministers, and thus brought about their own peril and downfall. If the ruler of men wishes to put an end to evil doing, then he must be careful to match up names and results, that is to say, words and deeds. The ministers come forward to present their proposals. The ruler assigns them tasks on the basis of their words and then concentrates on demanding the accomplishment of the task. If the accomplishment fits the task and the task fits the word, then he bestows reward. But if they do not match, he doles out punishment. Hence, if one of the ministers comes forward with big words but produces only small accomplishments, the ruler punishes him, not because the accomplishments are small, but because they do not match the name that was given to the undertaking. Likewise, if one of the ministers comes forward with small words but produces great accomplishments, he too is punished, not because the ruler is displeased at great accomplishments, but because he considers the discrepancy in the name given to the undertaking to be a fault too serious to be outweighed by great accomplishments. Once in the past, Marquis Chow of Han got drunk and fell asleep. The keeper of the royal hut, seeing that the Marquis was cold, laid a robe over him. When the Marquis awoke, he was pleased and asked his attendants, "Who covered me with a robe?" "The keeper of the hut," they replied. The Marquis thereupon punished both the keeper of the royal hut and the keeper of the royal robe. He punished the keeper of the robe for failing to do his duty, and the keeper of the hut for overstepping his office. It was not that he did not dislike the cold, but he considered the trespass of one official upon the duties of another to be a greater danger than cold. Hence, an enlightened ruler in handling his minister does not permit them to gain merit by overstepping their offices or to speak words that do not tally with their actions. Those who overstep their offices are condemned to die. Those whose words and actions do not tally are punished. If the ministers are made to stick to their proper duties and speak only what is just, then they will be unable to band together in cliques to work for each other's benefit. The ruler of men has two worries. If he employs only worthy men, then his ministers will use the appeal to worthiness as a means to intimidate him. On the other hand, if he promotes men in an arbitrary manner, then state affairs will be bungled and will never reach a successful conclusion. Hence, if the ruler shows a fondness for worth, his ministers will all strive to put a pleasing facade on their actions in order to satisfy his desires. In such a case, they will never show their true colors, and if they never show their true colors, then the ruler will have no way to distinguish the able from the worthless. Because the king of Yue admired valor, many of his subjects defied death because King Ling of Chu liked slim waists. His state was full of half-starved people on diets. Because Duke Huan of Qi was jealous and loved his ladies in waiting, Shu Tiao castrated himself in order to be put in charge of the harem. Because the duke was fond of unusual food, Yi Ya steamed his son's head and offered it to the duke. Because Chi Kuai of Yan admired worthy men, Chi Tre insisted that he would not accept the throne even if it were offered to him. Thus, if the ruler reveals what he dislikes, his ministers will be careful to disguise their motives. If he shows what he likes, his ministers will feign abilities they do not have. In short, if he lets his desire be known, he gives his ministers a clue as to what attitude they had best assume. Hence, Chichra, by playing the part of a worthy, was able to snatch power from his sovereign, Shu Tiao and Yi Ya, by catering to the ruler's desires, were able to invade his authority. As a result, Zui Kuai died in the chaos that ensued, and Duke Huan was left unburied for so long that maggots came crawling out the door of his death chamber. What caused this? It is an example of the calamity that comes when the ruler reveals his feelings to his ministers. As far as the feelings of the ministers go, they do not necessarily love their ruler. They serve him only in the hope of substantial gain. Now, if the ruler of men does not hide his feelings and conceal his motives, but instead gives his minister a foothold by which they may invade his rights, then they will have no difficulty in doing what Chichra and Tian Chang did. Hence it is said, "Do away with your likes, do away with your hates, and the ministers will show their true colors." And when the ministers have shown their true colors, the ruler of men will never be deceived.